Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today, July 14th, 2020, for our webinar, Using Social Media to Tell Your Story. Today's webinar is a production of the Virginia Small Business Development Center. With 29 centers across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses. The Virginia SBDC is headquartered at George Mason University and is a program that is a cooperative agreement between the U.S. Small Business Administration, premier institutions across Virginia, and our local governments. My name is Stephanie Keener, and I am the Executive Director of the Virginia SBDC, which serves the city of Lynchburg, Amherst, Appomattox, Bedford, and Campbell counties. We are hosted at the Lynchburg Regional Business Alliance. Today's webinar is the fourth in our series on marketing in a post-COVID world. Our facilitator, Christina Garnett, makes her home in Virginia's Roanoke Valley. As a marketing strategist and social media consultant, Christina strives to stay up to date with the ever-changing digital marketing landscape. She is currently certified by Google, Hootsuite, HubSpot, Wix, and YouTube. With her teaching and counseling experience, she works to empower small business owners to take charge of their marketing needs and use it to create and share their brand. With a marketing foundation based on inbound marketing, she showcases a deep love of audience understanding and data analysis. Please note that next week's webinar, Getting Customers Back, will be a repeat of week 1, and that will occur on July 21, Tuesday, July 21 at the same time. You can see other webinars with Christina the ones we've had over the past 3 weeks at virginiasbdc.org or at sbdclynchburgregion.org. You can also find them by searching on YouTube for Virginia SBDC. And I also encourage you to check out the Virginia SBDC's Recovery Resources page. We're working to add more training titles for the coming weeks, so stay tuned. And yes, we will be making the slides and a recording of today's webinar available. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type those questions into the question box, and Tracy at our George Mason headquarters will help us facilitate those questions at the end of the session. Christina will do her best to answer. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Christina. I think we're ready to go here.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Using Social Media to Tell Your Story webinar. So just to go ahead and break things down, there is a lot of people online. There's a lot of people on social, and most of the people watching this, you have your own social media channels. You either have personal business, a mixture of the two, but I really want to streamline and talk about how you need to negotiate and really craft the overall story of your business and what you are trying to convey. So definitely not a throw spaghetti on the wall, see what kind of sticks sort of narrative. Next. So before you publish, it's really important that having it in an Instagram account or Facebook or TikTok or Twitter or whatever you're using, it's great to have those, but we need to come from a place of having a plan. There needs to be a clear strategy as to what kind of content needs to live there, what kind of story that we're telling. If we're creating images and video, what is the aesthetic of that content? It needs to feel like there is a consistency. There needs, in timing, in content, in brand guidelines, there needs to be an understanding of what that is. There's so much content online right now, but very few stories. There's a lot of content, but we're not seeing anything that feels purposeful. So a lot of the problems that I see, and I'm friends and colleagues with a lot of social media managers as well for businesses of all sizes. And even though they are at the helm, they're seeing the same kind of disconnect where people still feel, oh, I need you to get this out today. I need you to post this today. Instead of really having that conversation of, is this a part of the story that we're telling? Is this in our content buckets for what we want to be talking about when it comes to our audience? So really think about, we don't want to be posting for the sake of posting. You shouldn't be posting on Thursday at 2 p.m. because it's Thursday at 2 p.m. and you haven't posted yet this week. Like, there really needs to be some thought behind it, because if you don't care enough to create a plan and strategy for your content, then why is someone who's going to see it care about it either? Next. So the lens of this is, there's a quote by Einstein that talks about, if you can't, something to the effect of, if you can't describe it simply, then you don't understand it well enough. So when we're talking about our story, and when you're thinking about your business or what you do, if you have any paper in front of you or maybe your phone and you want to take notes, but see if you can figure out in one sentence or less, like you could do just a few words if you want, but in one sentence, 2 sentences at most, describe what you do in the most simplest of words, no buzzwords at all, but just what do you do? What do you offer? What's your value? Really see if you can get that down. See if you can get down to the root of what you are and what you bring to the table when it comes to your customers, your clients, your partners, your strategic partners. What do you do? And then think, if you were to describe what you do to a child, what would you say? Can you make it simple? And for this very reason, the rest of this and how we're going to be formatting a story is based on fairy tales. So I'm sure you didn't expect that you were going to be coming into a small business development center webinar and talk about fairy tales. But that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today, and how you can use fairy tales as a framework for how you're going to create this narrative around your business, around your brand, around what you do. Next. So we're going to talk about your brand. You're the protagonist in this. You're going to be the protagonist of the fairy tale. Now, I like to think about this as like Disney princesses. So if we think about Disney princesses, they all have very clear colors. There's color schemes. They have a talent or a sidekick. They sing a certain way. But they have their specific characteristics. They either wear gloves or don't wear gloves. Their hair's up or their hair's down. But they have very clear characteristics, so that if you showed a silhouette of a Disney princess to a child, 9 times out of 10, that child will be able to recognize it without any colors, without any clear indication of who it is, just with the silhouette. Especially now, let's add a yellow dress. Now, who are we talking about? So when you're thinking about that, it's a really good framework to see for your brand and your branding. When you're creating content, you need to be easily identifiable. It needs to be very clear when someone is scrolling through the feed. Oh, I recognize that. That's so-and-so. Especially, you see this a lot on Instagram, where there's a specific kind of filter they use. There's a specific kind of like color tone that they use, so that whenever they're looking, when you can always, even without looking at the copy and the caption, you can actually scroll and you can identify someone's picture with an Instagram account that you follow that you like, just because of the overall aesthetic that they've chosen. And it's the same thing with yours. Do you have logo? Do you have brand guidelines? Do you have a specific font that you use? Is there a specific color scheme that you use? One thing that I really don't like on social is when you can tell that people they found Canva, which is great, but they don't take enough time to manipulate those templates and make them their own. So they'll take a template and then they'll just change the copy to say what they need, and then they put it out there. Well, anyone that's used Canva knows immediately that that's a Canva template. They can probably spot the template you use. But B, you didn't make it your own. Changing it so that it reads your holiday party instead of the holiday party that the template was isn't enough. It needs to speak to who you are. It doesn't mean you need to put your logo on everything. Actually, please don't do that. But it needs to be indicative of who you are. So what colors do you use? What logos do you have? What fonts do you use? And if you are using Canva, great. You can create a team account. You can load in your colors. You can load in your fonts. You can put in your logos all in one place. And it'll make it easy for you if that is a tool that you're using, or if you're using Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever tool you're using. But you need to think about, how are people identifying your content? And it's through those fonts, it's through those colors, it's through your brand voice. So you really need to think, how are people able to identify my content as mine? And if you're looking at the stuff that you're putting on social, really like put those assets side by side, take screen captures and put them all together and think, like, does this look like it comes from the same business? Does this look like it's from the same brand? Because if it doesn't, then we really need to tighten that branding. We really need to make sure that it's very clear that the content that we're creating, this is what it's looking like. So easily identifiable. We want to make sure that they're seeing that. And that goes for the brand voice as well. Whenever you're writing something, if you're thinking about what you want to be, underneath that line that you wrote about what is your sentence about what you do, underneath that, I want you to write 3 adjectives that describe how you want to describe your brand and how you talk to others online, in person. What do you want to be seen as? Do you want to be seen as knowledgeable, caring, kind, thoughtful? So that way you can make sure that when you're trying to, if you don't have a brand voice yet, or you've just been typing and you're just writing copy and you're not really sure, then think about how can you consider, but you need to make sure that you are aligning that brand voice with the 3 adjectives that you've chosen. So really think about, how do you want to be known? How do you want to be perceived? And think about when you're writing people, especially in customer interactions, if people are asking questions, in your general copy, what do you want to be known as? Because that brand voice does take over. If you follow Wendy's Twitter at all, you'll realize that their brand voice is very snarky. And so that brand voice is actually really taken over when it comes down to what that brand is known for. Wendy's online, they don't really talk about the food. They talk about the fact that the Wendy's social media person is going to be quite snarky. It's going to clap back, as you will. It's going to really really get at some people online. So that brand voice and how you're choosing to activate, it does take over that narrative. Next. So your audience, they need to be the hero. So anytime your audience feels empowered to do something, when it's very clear how they're able to engage with you, it's very clear how they're able to be a part of your story. It makes them feel like they get to be a part of it. They get to share. They get to talk about how great your business is, and then make things better. So when you're thinking about your audience, positioning them in a way where they feel like they have a role to play. They're able to save you. They're able to help. They're able to make a difference. They're able to clearly identify what's gonna help your business, and that can be telling them to like come over for like dinner, or if they can buy something, or if they can just share. There's so many opportunities to be able to create engagement when you just let that person know what you want. A lot of the things that I like to do for social media is I really like to ask questions in my copy, because people genuinely think about the emotional connection that creates. If I'm talking to you, but I'm not asking any questions, then I'm just spouting in one direction. But if I start asking questions, then I'm inviting you to engage with me. I am inviting you into a dialogue, into a conversation. And so it's encouraging that engagement. So now we're starting to feel like you're inviting the hero, you're inviting the audience into the story. And so you want to let them know that I see what you're doing. I see that you're sharing. I see that you're making things better. I see that you're doing what you can to make the business stronger. So your audience is the hero. They want to see themselves in that story. They want to feel like they are a part of who you are. If you've ever had a really great experience with a brand or a small business, and you're telling someone else, you're telling a friend or a family member or a colleague about this business, what they need to do, if you really listen to yourself, you will catch yourself talking about the business as if it was your own, because you are so proud and so happy, and you instantly want to encourage that. So a good experience in being able to be a brand ambassador, it empowers you, because you realize, like, what can I do to say thank you and help this business? I can share word of mouth, positive word of mouth. I can send positive reviews. I can make sure that others realize that, hey, you probably haven't even heard of this business, but you absolutely have to go see them. They're fantastic. We'll take really good care of you. They do da 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 da. But you become the hero in that story because you are helping them grow their business. Apart from their sales team, apart from the people who are working there daily, you are also taking on a role and being a part of the growth of their business. Next. And then the struggle. All these fairy tales, there's a struggle, there's a challenge, there's an obstacle. And so the way that a business or a protagonist handles this, it could be Cinderella not being able to go to the ball. It could be Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk and what happens when he faces the giant. It can be all of these different things. They hit a roadblock somewhere. And so it's how they handle these situations, and it's how they work through them that shows who they are. And just like with businesses struggle. It can be the lockdown. It can be a bad review. It can be a bad customer experience. It can be a multitude of things. But what it does is that it is an opportunity for you, the brand, the protagonist, to overcome it. And how you overcome it dictates your character arc. It dictates how others are going to see your brand as they see your story progress. And so knowing that you struggle, it also humanizes your brand because they see like, no one's perfect. I mean, if anything we've realized in the past few months with lockdown is that no one has it all figured out. No one has all the answers, and that's okay. It's important to try though, and it's important to make sure that we're taking our best step forward and we're doing what we feel is right in order to get through this obstacle. And so realizing that it's like even fairy tales, there's bumps in the road. There really are. And so what steps can we do, can we take in order to work through those struggles and those obstacles? Next. So the villain. I use this example because I live in Salem, so I love this example. The villain is anyone who can challenge or threaten your brand. And for depending on the fairy tale, the villain shows up in different ways and is defeated in different ways. And sometimes it's one or two people that come together, one or two characters that come together to defeat it. Sometimes it's a community, but either way, it's how you're choosing to fight that villain. So one story that I really loved is Mac and Bob's, which is a restaurant in Salem, and they had legal issues. There was a former employee that was suing them, and rather egregiously, in my personal opinion. But they did something that I just cannot applaud enough. They came out and were just very open about what happened. They were very transparent and explained, like, here is what happened, and here is why we're being sued, and here is the position that we're in. And it's an institution in Salem. It's very well beloved. And the story grew, and the community as a whole came together, and the community was like, we're going to fight this dragon with you. We're going to help. So they fundraised a ton of money to take care of all the legal fees. There was so much that there was extra left over, and so the owners actually created scholarships for staff members using the extra money. But it was the perfect example of the protagonist, Mac and Bob's, coming out and being very clear and saying, like, guys, we have a dragon, and we can't fight it on our own. Here's what's happening, and the community rising up and saying, let's help, let's do our part, let's be a part of this fight and really get through this challenge. And it's a really heartwarming story. I definitely recommend you take a look. But it was a very proud moment for a lot of people in Salem to watch the community come together and see what was happening. But it really does come into when your brand, when your business hits a villain, how are you gonna react? How are you gonna engage? How are you gonna defeat it? Are you gonna ignore it? I've seen so many brands be like, we're just ignoring that. We're not talking about that. We're not getting into that. Others fight it head on. Others do what Mac and Bob's did, which was they were incredibly transparent. And they put all of their cards on the table, and it was just really heartwarming, and it just immediately it instilled the sense of, they're laying this all out here for us, and if you want to be a part of that community and step up, great. But it was really heartwarming. So storytelling is not only for establishing your brand, but it can also save your brand, which is this is a prime example of that happening. Next. And then don't forget the other characters. Think about your favorite fairy tales. It's probably not always the protagonist that's your favorite. It might be the little sidekick. It might be the funny character that always gets all the one-liners. But really think about not just making it about the brand itself and not just being about the protagonist, but think about the other people that make that brand so special. So when some of the best content that I've created for brands that I've worked with has nothing to do with like a logo or a campaign or anything like that, some of the best performing content are pictures and shout outs of the people who work for you and highlighting the people who make your brand so special, because chances are, especially if you have a small business, there are small businesses that I go to and the service is great and the products are okay, but I go there because there's one or two people that are there that would take better care of me than anyone else that's a competitor, like bar none. So think about the people who make your brand special. Think about the people who, I only want to get my hair done by so-and-so, or I shop here whenever so-and-so is working because he or she always takes good care of me. But think about how you can highlight those other characters in your story, the people who make your brand so special, because I'm telling you, your audience loves those people. And it speaks highly of the business and brand too, because they realize that you're taking that you cherish and you appreciate your staff as much as they do, which is incredibly important. Next. So also stories have a moral or a lesson. And so right now this is extremely important to think about, especially as we have all this information at our fingertips. So when we are looking for answers online, and it's kind of this double-edged sword where on the one hand, we literally have the internet at our fingertips, all the questions and answers that we could ever think about. But on the other side of that sword, we get bored easily. And so I want to learn, but I don't want to be bored while I do it. So in the same fashion, fairy tales, they're going to tell a story and it's going to have a lesson, like don't talk to strangers, don't take food from someone you don't know, be kind. Like there's all these different lessons, but they're woven into a story that children naturally love and can remember, and it's simple and kind of all the other ingredients that we've talked about before. And in the same way, your content needs to do the same thing, educate but entertain. In previous webinars, we've talked about one of the content pillars that you can use is to educate, to help others to learn and things like that. TikTok is a great example. There's a lot of videos on TikTok that will walk you through how to do things, but it's done in really quick bursts, and it's done with bright colors and with specific music choices. So you're entertained while you're learning, and you're getting these like bite-sized pieces of content where you're able to glean information from them. In the same way, when you're creating these stories, think about how are you trying to educate your audience? Are you trying to show them how to do something? Are you trying to explain what you do and how you do it? Whatever you're trying to explain, is there a way to do that and still entertain them? Because the people who are going to stick with it are the people who have to know. But the people who are just curious, if they get bored, they're going to fall off. So it really needs to be digestible, like I said, bite-sized pieces. And then think about how you can do that in a fun way, how you can educate. Next. And then the ending. This for me is the most important part, because the thing about, like going back to Disney, is you have these happily ever after. You have these happy endings. And as an adult, you see that and you're like, yeah, that doesn't happen. That's like, my prince isn't coming. But as a child, you watch these movies and you know that you're going to get a happy ending. You know there's going to be a castle. You know you know you're going to live happily ever after, and those things. So it feels attainable. It doesn't feel you haven't hit that level of cynicism yet where you're like, that's not how it works. But the same thing is true for your brand story. It needs to feel aspirational but feel attainable. If you come to my business, I'm going to be able to give you what you need. I'm going to be able to give you the products and services that you need. I'm going to be able to help you solve your problem, and do it and make you happy. And so that's the thing, is in your business is there a happy ending? If someone goes through the buyer's journey, they know who you are, they look through their options, and they choose you. You're the castle, you're the prince, you're the whatever you want to call it. If they choose you, do they end up happily ever after? Do you delight them? Do you make sure they're happy? Are you providing exceptional customer experiences? Are you taking care of them? Are you checking on them to make sure that they're happy once they've turned into a customer? Or are you letting them fall through the funnel? Yeah, they went straight from top, middle, and bottom, and now I have their money. I don't care anymore. Are you making that happily ever after happen? And then sharing those happily ever afters. Everyone wants to see what's on the other side. That's why we have reviews. That's why we have testimonials. That's why we have all of these opportunities to share what our customers and clients are saying about us. And because we want to know, like, how does the story end? And is that attainable for me? Because you could tell a great story and then we get to the ending and it's all a lie. It's aspirational, but it's not attainable. For you and your business, you need to find a way that, yes, I'm gonna work with this business. Yes, this is the buyer's journey. I'm gonna get through. I'm gonna convert, and then I'm gonna be happy. They're gonna take care of me. They're gonna give me the service and the product or service that I need. They're gonna solve my problem. So that's incredibly important. It's incredibly important that you're getting them through. You're telling them the story, and then in the very end, there's the payoff. They get to be happy. They get to have their problem solved. Next. And then I love this quote so much. I love Seth Godin. He's written so many books. It's insane. And I would honestly recommend any of them, but it's absolutely fantastic. But it really goes in line with what we're talking about here, which is marketing is no longer about the stuff that you make, but about the stories you tell. And think about that when you're trying to sell somebody something and you're talking about who you are versus telling a story. What's going to be more engaging? What's going to feel more impactful? Which has the opportunity to emotionally resonate with them? The story will, because they feel like they can be a part of that. They want to become a part of that, and you invite them through your content and how you're creating that story online. So right now, you should have a line that says, like, here's what you do. You should have 3 words that this is my brand voice, like this is what I want to describe. And then I want you to walk your way through and see if we're walking through the ingredients of this story. So we have the protagonist, we have the brand. What does that person look like? What are your colors? What are your fonts? What's your brand voice? Then we have the audience, the hero. Who do you want to save you? Who is your audience? What questions do they have? What are their needs? Is it a specific demographic, or is it a specific pain point that you answer? And then we have the struggles. Are there any specific struggles that you've either faced in the past or you're facing now? And there's nothing wrong with saying, yeah, right now the obstacle is COVID. The obstacle is what's happening with lockdown and not lockdown, and masks and not masks, and all the minutia that goes around that. And think about, what steps are you taking? How are you getting through this obstacle? What efforts are you making right now? And then the villain do you have a villain right now? Is there something that is threatening your business? And is it something that you need to face on your own? Is it something you need to ignore? Is it something that you need to, like I use Mac and Bob as an example? Is it an opportunity to bring your community together to see if y'all can fight this dragon together? Other characters. What makes your brand so special? Who are the people behind the logo? Who are the people that people like to talk to and like to see when they come to your business? And then you have You have the ending. What happens? What happens at the end? Really think about that end of the story. What happens when someone becomes a customer of yours? Do you continue to treat them with admiration? Do you continue to show them how much you appreciate them? Or do you just move along to the next part of the story? Really think about that. Are you really giving people a happily ever after when they become a part of your business? And then where are you going to tell your story? Are you more about video? Are you more about images? Are you more about copy? Or both? How are you going to take steps today to really start mapping out that story? And then once you have all those pieces, would you read your story? If it wasn't your business, if it wasn't your brand, would you care? Really think about that. Keep it simple, keep it entertaining, and really guide through that path. Next. And that's it.
Thanks, Christina. This is great. We do have at least one question. So if anyone has any questions, please use the question and answer window to type them in. So one of our questions is, where is a good place to use your logo versus not?
Okay, great. So I like logos on things that need to be clearly marked as yours. So for instance, let's say that you have a strategic partnership for an event. So it's not going to be just your font, your colors, but it's going to be like an amalgamation of whatever someone's promoting. Your logo definitely needs to be there because it needs to be very clear that you were a part of that. But if you are posting stuff on Facebook, like I see this a lot on Facebook. Facebook's probably the worst offender for this. On your owned channels, if you're putting your logo on like every single image, it becomes very clear, like I know that this is you because on the post, it has the name of your business right there. It has the logo. So really think about when you're looking at content, technically in the wild, if your logo is already on that post somewhere anyway, then you don't need something else to identify it as yours. You can do that through your colors, through your brand guidelines, things like that. So I would say for like own channels, the logo doesn't have to be on every piece of asset. On your website, obviously you would want your logo somewhere, usually top left corner or top right corner, at the bottom in the footer. But for owned, really think about like you want to keep it simple. You don't want to have logos absolutely everywhere. It needs to be something, and that's why the beauty of putting things together, using your brand guidelines. People are going to get used to seeing the same colors, the same sort of aesthetic, and they're going to start recognizing it as you. Think about it this way. If I took a McDonald's advertisement and I took the logo off, you would know it was a McDonald's ad. You would know it was a McDonald's piece. Nike has done, especially during like Black Lives Matter, they've done a lot of posts where it's just like a black background and the white Nike font. And they don't even have to have the swoosh. You know it's Nike just because of the color variation and the font choices. So what you're doing is and it's not going to happen overnight, but by consistently setting up assets that have that same clear tone and overall aesthetic, then over time people are going to recognize that as that's so-and-so. That's the font they use, that's the color. And even if they don't personally recognize it, their subconscious will. Because you pick up things when you're seeing stuff that you may not consciously be aware of, but you notice. And that's why a lot of brands, they have specific color choices that they use, because over time you start associating with that. Like think about, like I'll pick on McDonald's again. There are specific colors associated with McDonald's. There are specific colors associated with Target, specific colors associated with Starbucks. And so when you see those colors and slight variations, or you see their font with those colors, you automatically understand the brands that you're looking at. And so as a small business or as a brand in general, you want to start building up that association.
If a social media channel growth seems to be stagnant, is it worth to pay to boost a post to encourage new follower growth?
Okay, so on Facebook, I'm not a fan of boost at all. I'll tell you why. If you are going to do an ad on Facebook, I would do it in Ads Manager for multiple reasons. Social media growth right now is very stagnant across, I would say across platforms, but specifically Facebook right now. As soon as the majority, Facebook makes money through ads. It is not financially beneficial for them for you to organically grow very well. And that's why over time, as well as more and more people getting on Facebook as a social media platform to begin with, in general, you're seeing very stagnated pieces of content where you're not seeing the growth that you're wanting. You're not seeing what you really want out there. So I would consider why you want that ad. If you're boosting just for followers, then think about it this way. If I create an ad, Boost or Ad Manager, but if I give Facebook money so that more people see my page to get followers, great. But then I still hit the problem of, well, organic is bad. So what you've done is you've paid money for followers, and Facebook's still not going to show those new people your stuff because they still are not showing a lot of the followers the organic content anyway. Do you see what I'm saying? So you're paying for people to know you exist and connect with you, but then Facebook's still not going to let them see all of your posts. So what you're better off doing is, if you want to create awareness, look at the content that the webinar that we had last week about advertising, and think about like top, middle, bottom of the funnel advertising, and go into Ads Manager. The reason I don't like Boost versus Ads Manager is because Facebook sees and treats Boost as a quick money grab. Well, this person's just going to spend $20, and they're really not going to care about all the data analytics and everything that goes with it. So what's going to happen is you're going to see the problem of, if you create an ad in Ads Manager versus you create something in Boost, the amount of analytics and data you're going to get with one versus the other is quite stark. You're also going to be able to have more options to target and do more things in Ads Manager than you are with a Boost. So when you boost, Facebook is basically thinking, this person doesn't really know how ads work in Facebook, and they're not really going to be deep diving into the analytics. They just want like quick and dirty results, and then they're going to go on with their business. Versus Facebook Ads Manager, because it has more options, there's more data there to look into, you're more likely to have better performing content there because they know you're going to look at those results. You are going to look and see, was this successful, not successful. Does that make sense?
Love the storytelling aspect. Will you give us an example? Say I have a business to help another business have more repeat customers by reframing use of resources.
Okay, so it's repeat customers?
Yes.
Okay, then what I would do is reframe two things. Reframe the happy ending and reframe them as the hero. So what I would do is I would reach out to customers in the past, and it can be, we'd love to learn more about your experience with us. What did you like? What did you not like? And then frame it as, this is an opportunity where we can share what you say on our social media channels, so that they're able to feel a part of that narrative.
Okay. Is it okay to make up fictional characters?
Yes. We call those personas in marketing. And I would, and Stephanie brings up a really good point. When you're doing audio, when you're doing images and video, there's a thing, a lot of the bigger brands are doing this. A lot of small businesses haven't started doing this yet, but alt text is your friend. Alt text is your friend for multiple reasons. Alt text is great for images. I do them on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and Instagram. But what they do is it tells you what's in the picture. So it's for someone who has a reader who may not be able to see well, or they're not able to, they want to be able to see your content, but they can't, or they're unable to see exactly what's happening. So that helps them if they have a reader. In addition, it also helps with SEO, because now that alt text can be pulled in. So now if there's images that you've taken that you've put on social, and they have an alt text. Well, now that's something that could be easily found online if someone's Googling things that are part of that. So now you have some SEO help. And then in video, doing captions so people can see what you're doing for two reasons. One, you don't know if they have an impairment. Second, not everyone watches videos on with the sound on. A lot of people are watching video on their phones specifically, and they don't know, they either are just casually watching, or they don't want people to know what they're watching or to see what they're watching or be a part of that. So having captions enabled so that they're able to still digest your information but not have the sound on, crucial, absolutely crucial. That's a really good point.
Describe the distinctions between a persona, audience you want to capture, and hero, and how do you go about advertising to both in your story?
Okay, so the audience you want to hit is more generalized. So here you're talking about, like, I want to hit moms who do such and such. Persona is a deeper dive when you're actually getting into the shoes of that person and saying, all right, so this is Susie. She's 43 years old. She's a parent. These are the pain points that she has. Here are the people, like, and you can get as deep as you want. So I've done personas where I'm like, here are the kind of blogs they read. This is the kind of music they listen to. Here's the kind of accounts they follow. This is really great. I pull a lot of information. I've talked about this in past webinars, but Spark Toro, in pulling that audience intelligence, where if someone's talking about this product, I can tell what kind of blogs they read. I can tell what kind of social media channels they follow, and really kind of diving into that persona. And so the personas should guide you, but it shouldn't be like the only thing you hit, if that makes sense. So like you want to hit your target personas and create content that would reach them and resonate with them, but don't be afraid to create multiple personas where you're thinking about, this is like our current customer, this is a potential new customer, and this is a customer who needs us but doesn't realize it because they don't fit, like they have the pain point and need, but they don't fit any of the other things. So feel free to play with both. But yeah, audience you want to target and persona, it's just generalized versus like hyper specific.
Okay. A couple of kind of follow-up questions to some of what you've been talking about. One of our listeners asked, does alt text equal captions?
No. The alt text will not be seen unless they either have a reader, and all you're really doing is you're describing in like the most boring terms possible what it is. So if I took a picture of a cup of coffee on a table, my alt text would be, image is a cup of coffee on a table. Like you're not trying to be funny. You're not trying to win anybody over or have questions. The alt text is purely just a basic description of what's in the image. So when someone's reading your copy and your captions, they're able to go over and know what that image is about.
Christina, the tool that you just mentioned again to research persona, what was that? Got a lot of questions here.
Spark Toro, SparkToro.com. And you'll be able to do it by your name. You'll be able to do it by your product or service, like keywords. And what it will do is it will tell you, based on those lists, people who talk about umbrellas tend to follow such and such and such and such. Here's the YouTube channels they tend to follow. Here's the blogs they tend to read. And that will give you a lot of information. It will help you focus, like what kind of content you need to be creating, what kind of things they're drawn to. It could be a strategic partnership where you want to do an ad. Well, maybe the ad needs to be placed on a specific blog that you know that your audience. So instead of paying Facebook for like boosting on Facebook to get people to know you exist, maybe you need to create an ad on a blog that you know they're more likely to be reading, and that's how you're gaining. You know what I'm saying? So things like that.
Okay. Are audio clips effective enough if they're identified as audio only? That way you're not spending as much time editing on video clips if you want to spin up a story quickly?
Audio is great. I really like audiograms. So that way you do have something visual to really focus on while you're doing that. There's a really great tool called headliner.app that will help you create audiograms. It has if you go to headliner.app, it will create, and you can do them in story, like 9:16. You can do them as landscape. You can do them as square. So if you want to put them on Instagram, what it does is you take the audio file and you overlay it with a image, and then it will let you do captions. So there's a caption creator there if you wanted to do that. And then you're able to put, you're able to create different wavelengths, use different wavelengths. So that way you're able to use audio, but you're able to do it in a visually compelling way with captions.
Personally, although I've seen some cool stuff at great prices for sale on Facebook, I've never placed an order through Facebook because with all the scams out there, I don't trust the platform. Have you received similar responses to mine, or are there surveys supporting this buying attitude?
No, you're definitely not alone. There's a lot of people who feel that way. And there's also just general mistrust with Facebook right now and as a whole, which is going to be very interesting because Facebook has launched that Facebook Shops opportunity. And so it's going to be interesting to see if people support that as well, because Facebook's taking a cut. And there's a lot of people who they want to help support small businesses, but if that small business is attached to a Facebook shop, it's going to be very interesting to see if they will still patronize through that option, knowing that Facebook's getting a cut. Because I think we can all agree that Facebook's not really, Facebook looks more and more like the villain each day, if I'm honest.
Sorry, Stephanie, can you type, or Christina, in the chat window the SparkToro site? Because Christina, we still have several people that had trouble getting that when you spoke it, and I did not write it down.
Okay. So,
Are you doing that, Christina?
Yeah. Spell that again. Yeah, I answered one of the questions.
So yeah, I think we all kind of got lost after the Spark with the
Toro, T-O-R-O.
It's T-O, not P-O. That's
Yeah.
what I thought, but
yeah, SparkToro, yeah. And it's by Rand Fishkin, who did Moz. He created Moz. So for anyone who's an SEO person, I absolutely loved him. He also has a really great book, especially for entrepreneurs that are attached to this webinar. It's called Lost and Founder. Highly recommend. It's one of the only entrepreneurial written books where it isn't all about the wins. He's very clear about the obstacles and the struggles, and it's excellent. Lost and Founder. Big fan. I would highly, like, looking for like a summer book club, like that's my recommendation. It's fantastic.
Okay. All right. So we've got some specific Facebook questions. What do you think are the most effective ways to use Facebook Live?
Effective way to create Facebook Live is you need to do it prior. You need to make sure that it's very clear when it's going to happen. And you need to explain why people need to pay attention. So what I would do is create an event post so that people can go ahead and join and they can see what's happening. They can go ahead and like that. Let them know when it's going to be. Let them know when they can expect it. So that way, you're not just jumping on. There's so many people who will just jump on Facebook Live and they're like, no one's here. I'm like, you didn't tell anybody to be here. Like you can't just throw a party and expect people to just like feel like a change in the universe. They're like, oh, there must be a party happening somewhere. Same thing with Facebook Live. Let people know when it's happening. Let them know why they should care. And then use tools like Be Live TV, or there's another one. What is it called? Something Yard.
I'm not familiar with that, Christina, but while you're thinking about that, what?
StreamYard.
StreamYard. I would throw in here that, the same is true for Instagram Live as well. Make sure your followers at least know when you regularly go live. If you are doing Tuesday morning tours of the shop, or here's what's new on, Wednesdays at 10, you don't have to, you may not be creating a specific event on Facebook or on Instagram. You don't create events on Instagram, but at least people know when to tune in and when they have that, that regularity there. for your followers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But StreamYard and BeLive TV are two different options, and they'll let you stream on Facebook as well as other channels. So if you wanted to do it across like Periscope or LinkedIn or things like that, that will help you so that you can do multiple channels. And then spend a couple minutes letting people get on and just having conversations. If you're still welcoming people, as you see people come into Facebook Live, like thank them for joining, say hi if people have comments, respond to people as they're putting things in there, and ask questions to get started. One of the cool things that I like is, especially if you have like a global audience, is letting people say like, hey, start with a question. Hey, if you're jumping on, where are you from? Where are you watching this from? Or like for something like today, if we were to do something like this on Facebook Live, one of the first questions would be like, so how are you starting your morning? Have you done it? Have you been up for very long? Are you drinking coffee? Are you drinking tea? What are you doing? Just really simple, basic questions that create engagement, but also showcase that you're involved. And no one wants to watch a platform where they feel like they're not involved. I mean, imagine how you would feel at this webinar if there wasn't a question section. How likely are you to feel engaged if you have a question and you know it's not going to get answered? And you don't feel involved. You're like, I don't know if this is worth it. I can probably just get this information somewhere else. But being able to answer your questions and get return on that's where the value is.
Okay. Where can I go to get help learning how to use Facebook and Instagram?
Facebook. There is basically Facebook has its own learning module process. It's so you can actually go through and it will teach you how to do ads. It will teach you how to do basically everything that you would want, so that you're able to really break things down. It's called Blueprint. So if you just Google Facebook Blueprint, it will teach you, there's individual modules on Facebook and Instagram. But what's funny is that and Stephanie knows this, I started doing Blueprint right when it was launched a few years back. And it was very interesting to me because I always find it telling, especially when a platform educates you on the platform, you can tell a lot based on where it spends its information, like where it spends the quality of time and focus. And the focus even then was on ads. And I was like, oh, we're just going to have ads on ads on ads. That's what you really care about. And so you're going to be able to go in there and see things. It's completely free. You don't have to pay unless you want to get certified in Facebook. And there's different levels. It's like $150 to take the test in order to be certified. And I went through all of Blueprint about 3 years ago, and didn't take the test because at that point they didn't have a set time for when it would expire. And I was like, I'm not paying $150 if you can't tell me how long this is good for. But it's a year now. So you can definitely look into that. But yeah, Facebook, Google does the same thing. If you search like Google Ads, I think it's like Google Skill Shop is what it's called now. They rebrand like every 2 years. Google Ads, like they rebrand their learning place. But the thing is that Google and Facebook, they want you to feel comfortable with their platform, because if you are comfortable and you think you know what you're doing, you will spend more money. So it is in their best interest to educate you. So most of those platforms, and like Twitter has its own like flight school, Snap has a learning thing, Pinterest has a learning thing. They all have learning opportunities for you, because if you feel comfortable, then eventually you'll get to the ad side and you'll be like, I know exactly how this platform and algorithm works, and you'll spend money. So it financially behooves them to educate you.
And don't forget that you can always come to the Virginia SBDC for training and one-on-one consultation about your business questions. So just reach out to your local SBDC.
And we also have a lot of webinars that have been archived over time. So if that's something that you're interested in, go to the Virginia SBDC website. But like Stephanie said, our local offices have people on staff to work through these things with you. Mm-hmm. Let's see. For a new business that started in January with limited funds, do you have a suggestion on any non-traditional methods, how to get in front of target audience?
Use what information you already have. So if you have an email list, you can use that email list for targeting on Google Ads as well as Facebook. On Facebook, another reason why you should be doing Ads Manager instead of Boost is that with Ads Manager, you can actually upload that email list and look for lookalike audiences. So Facebook will use their data points to determine people that are on Facebook that match or have similar characteristics, the people who are already currently your customers. So that's a really targeted way to focus, to like pinpoint focus on people based on specific niche characteristics within their demographics. And then remarketing. Like I said, if you're looking at people who've already been to your website, that's a really great way to facilitate that very efficiently. But yeah, look and see what you already have, and then use your heroes. If you have a Facebook group that is for your business or brand, where people can talk about what they love and what they do, then you're able to be in a position where you can you're able to know more specifically that these are the kind of people that we want to target without feeling like you're kind of throwing that spaghetti across the wall.
How many campaigns out there are written as first as a story that stands alone without reference to a product, but the product is woven into the thread of the story? I'm trying to assert the balance between story and product.
Absolutely. So I have a really great example of this. So you need to Google the Harmon brothers, because especially for advertising, they are the best storytellers I have ever seen. And they actually do fairy tales. They did if you've ever seen the purple Goldilocks commercial where Goldilocks is like trying all the different mattresses, there's that. If you've seen Squatty Potty, that was also the Harmon brothers. But the product is a core part of the overall story, but the story is just so strong that you can't help but be a part of it. But search for the Harmon brothers if you're looking for especially how to really win because of the story, and the product is really kind of like secondary to that. Nobody does it better than the Harmon brothers. Absolutely not. That's like go-to. It's gold.
They also have a couple of really great books.
Mm-hmm.
Any advice for a service-based business who's focused on selling a course that teaches moms how to become virtual assistants? I'm not sure how to create a storytelling on social with this.
Okay, there's actually a really great example of this. Phoenix University, or University of Phoenix, was early. University of Phoenix, I think. But there's a commercial I saw where they talked about this, and it was they made the audience the hero, where this woman was working really late and she was doing all these things, and she had a small son and all this other stuff, and it showcased that she was able to rise up because of her education, and she was able to have this new life because of what she was doing. And I can see if I can find it on YouTube and send it to you. But the overall story was, because she was taking this step and taking these classes, she was putting herself in a better position, and she became the hero. She was fighting her dragons. She became a phoenix. Basically, she rose from the ashes. And so there's definitely examples of doing that. What I would do is, for a story about teaching moms how to be VAs, is what I would do is that story needs to be, what is the arc of someone, the character arc of someone who goes through that journey? What does that look like? And so they're able to see, like, what is the good, what is the bad, what are the struggles, what did they see, and then what at the very end, what were they able to become? What were they able to accomplish because they chose that path?
So there were some questions about, and I seem to have lost the one that was, is there, can you post too much on Facebook? Will it push your audience away if you're posting too much?
It depends. We can never get enough of good content. The problem is that there's a shortage. There's been a shortage for a very long time. Think about the kind of content that you would be expecting. There does need to be some consistency, but if you're posting like 10 times a day and it's all like, buy this, take this, call this, and it's all pushy in sales, then yeah, no one wants to see that. No one wants to see that. Think about if you're going to post like 10 times, one of those needs to be salesy. 9 of those need to be something that's not pushing them to do anything. You're telling a story, you're educating them, you're doing something. But if everything you're posting is like, buy this, do this, buy this, do this, and it's all a push, then it doesn't matter how little or how much you are posting, because everything you're doing has a singular message, which is, I'm just trying to sell you stuff. I'm not trying to have any other type of relationship. I just want your money. And so it really depends. The other thing, especially for Facebook and other channels, honestly, you need to give your content time to breathe. If you're posting like every 30 minutes on Facebook, then you're telling Facebook, well, this is the new thing I need them to see. So you can cut off that other piece that I just posted. I need people to focus on this. So every time you're doing that, you're cutting off the previous post. You're cutting off its reach. So give it time to breathe, like at least an hour. If you gotta post every hour, like I'd love to see what you're trying to sell, that you need to post that often. But if you're gonna post that often, you need to really let that content have time to breathe.
So we are coming up right at 9:30. I'm going to ask 2 more questions. There are some more here. Some of them have to do with some of the sites and information. So I'm going to try to get those to you guys out in an email. But let's go with, I guess, the 2. How often should you compare your company's social media channel with competitors in your industry? And then what's the best time of the day to go live on Facebook or Instagram?
Okay. So first question, I like to do quarterly, at least quarterly analytics, and do competitive analysis, and also audit your own channels. What's working, what's not working. If you wait a whole year, so much changes in a year that when you're looking back on it, like you could look and see how Facebook did 3 years ago. And that's not really going to tell you that much, just because the algorithm has changed and what reaches has changed so much in the past 3 years. But if you're looking every quarter, then you have that opportunity to really see like what's gaining traction, what works, what doesn't work, what could we be doing better. This is the kind of content that my audience loves most. Here's what they engage with most. And same thing with your competitors. Your competitors should definitely be a part of your overall like look when it comes to audits, but it shouldn't dictate, because you never want to get to the point where you are pushing content due to a competitor. You always want it to feel like it is purposeful for you, and that you're able to be aligned in what you need. But I mean, I'm always checking competitors for my clients, because I want to know what's working and what's not working. But at bare minimum, once a quarter. And then the second one, it depends on your audience. I will say IGTV, not IGTV, IG Live, most of the IG Lives that I watch and I see, they're at night. And Facebook Live, I think it really depends on your audience. If people are like stay-at-home moms, then during the day works. You'd probably work around their nap time schedule for their children. If you're looking at if you're trying to work with people who are working from home but are trying to maybe shift or learn a new skill or do a different thing, maybe at night once they're finished with all their work for the day is better. It really depends on your audience, but I still tend to see a lot of the majority of the content is at night, or it's around like a lunchtime kind of deal. Depending on what your webinars are, I mean, especially since everybody's home, I mean, lunch and learns, lunch and learns are great, except you don't have to provide the lunch because they're at home. So just watch this, eat, and do your thing. And it depends on your audience, but you really need to kind of think about what does their day look like. But if you want just like a perfect answer that will hit all verticals, I mean, it doesn't really exist, but I would say at night, like 8 or 9.
Thank you, Christina. This has been great information. You've got a lot of kudos in the question and the answer, a lot of asks for the link to the previous webinars to go back to. So thank you. Stephanie, you want to go ahead and close us out?
Yeah, so thanks everybody again for joining us today. And we will have the slides and the recording for today's topic up on the website soon. You can go to Virginia SBDC or go to YouTube and search for Virginia SBDC there and see all of the previous topics. You'll find other topics there too, not just marketing, but other recovery topics that we've covered across the Commonwealth. You can also find us at virginiaspdc.org or spdclynchburgregion.org. Search for us on Facebook or Twitter, and we will see you next week. Remember, next week is a repeat of week 1, and I am really looking forward to thinking about how things have changed in the past month. So be sure and register for that one. So we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.